Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be the Combat Series episode number 81 for you guys today. And to kick off today's episode, I'll be sharing my thoughts on who Canelo Alvarez could possibly fight in his return back to the sport of boxing in 2025. So, we all know that Canelo Alvarez only fights 2 times out of the year, that being Cinco de Mayo weekend and Mexican Independence weekend. So those are the 2 dates that Canelo Alvarez likes to select and have his fights on for his Mexican fan base to support his own country, with Canelo being from Mexico. So there's 2 opponents in this segment that I do believe that Canelo Alvarez could pick to be his opponent for Cinco de Mayo weekend. The first opponent would be Terence Crawford. Now, I think if the money is right, I think we will see Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford Cinco de Mayo weekend. I think both sides would be happy to get this deal done. If the money's right, I think this will happen next. But I think I am on board with seeing Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford. Now that I've taken time to process the thoughts of it, I think that would be an entertaining fight because arguably Canelo and Terence Crawford have been the best fighters that we've seen in the sport of boxing since Floyd Mayweather retired in 2017. So both have been dominant at their own respective divisions, former undisputed champions in their own rights. The thing is, Terence Crawford have to move up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo Alvarez. And that's why people talk to me about who will win between Alvarez and Crawford. It sounds good to say Crawford, but then there's weight classes, and that's the reason why there's weight classes in the sport of boxing. Canelo Alvarez has been fighting very comfortably at 168 for quite some time. All he has to do is make the weight, and he could hydrate himself to be 190 pounds come fight night. Could Terence Crawford be able to absorb those type of power punches in a 12-round fight with Canelo Alvarez? But at this point of Canelo Alvarez's career, as he slowly starts to decline, I think Terence Crawford has the skills to defeat Canelo Alvarez, and I think he would give Canelo Alvarez a run for his money. The only thing that worries me is the weight difference between Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford, because Canelo Alvarez is obviously still a power puncher and slowly dissects his opponents by landing those power shots, those brutal shots to the face, those brutal shots to the body, slows opponents down. What would Terence Crawford do? He's got to take several power shots that sound like gunshots when you're at the fights or you're watching the fights at home on pay-per-view or wherever you watch the fights. Could Terence Crawford withstand that type of punishment? That's the question that a lot of people would have. Again, I think Crawford has the skills to beat Canelo, but being at that weight, it's different levels. And Ezra Madrimov, when Crawford made his debut at 154, was giving Terence Crawford some issues that we haven't seen Terence Crawford been exposed on his defensive side for quite some time, with him being one of the most dominant welterweight champions in boxing history. These are the things you guys got to have into consideration if you think Terence Crawford could beat Canelo Alvarez. Again, I'm not saying a prediction, but that would just be a quick preview of what we could see if we get Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford come May. Again, I think Crawford has the skills, being a dangerous southpaw this late in his career, with a stiff, mean jab, a great counter puncher. I think he can have the skills to give Canelo Alvarez a run for his money. But then the power and the fact that Canelo Alvarez can blow himself up to 190, that has to be into consideration when you discuss a Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez fight. But hey, I'm all in on this fight. I hope we do get it, because that brings me to Canelo Alvarez's next opponent. And David Benavidez is eliminated. I don't think we're getting that fight unless there is some type of deal for David Benavidez to go all the way back down to 168, which I don't see happening with the future that David Benavidez has at super light heavyweight. So the next opponent would be William Skull. Now, William Skull, if anybody doesn't know who William Skull is currently the reigning defending IBF champion at the super middleweight division. And if Canelo Alvarez were to pick a fight with William Skull for Cinco de Mayo weekend, it would only be for legacy standpoint of Canelo wanting to be a 2-time undisputed champion for getting that IBF title that he truly never lost against William Skull. Now, William Skull is 23-0 with 9 knockouts as the IBF champion. But if Canelo were to pick William Skull, I just feel like this would be the ultimate cherry pick of what he's been doing. And Canelo Alvarez, whether you want to debate it or not, Canelo Alvarez has not taken a risk in the sport of boxing since he lost to Dimitri Bivol on Cinco de Mayo weekend in 2022. Look at all his previous fights. Canelo Alvarez not have put himself in danger or in any harm's way, or has not been taking any risks since that loss against Dimitri Bivol. He fought a washed Triple G in the trilogy. That Triple G was not the same Triple G that Canelo fought the first 2 times. He fought a John Ryder that basically should have quit, but had the heart and desire to keep going after Canelo Alvarez broke his nose. Jermell Charlo had to move up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo. That was basically a sparring fest to make Canelo Alvarez look good. Jermell Charlo was out there selling for a bag. He had no desire to give Canelo Alvarez a true fight. Then you look at his last 2 opponents of Jaime Mugina and Edgar Berlanga. Both Canelo Alvarez could have easily finished off whenever he wanted to. Again, he was in there for 12 rounds to entertain the crowd and make himself look good. And if he does that going after William Skull, it's a chance for him to become a 2-time undisputed champion. But at what cost? Because yes, a legacy standpoint to become a 2-time undisputed champion, but William Skull with 23 victories and 9 knockouts is not even close or prepared to fight a caliber fighter like Canelo Alvarez at this point of his boxing career. So again, Canelo knows what he's doing. He knows that he can get away, secure the bag, and fight whoever the hell he wants to close his career. That's why I think, if anything, the Crawford fight is the only thing left for Canelo Alvarez to do, basically in terms of having a risk or taking risks. He has not had a knockout victory since 2021 when he knocked out Caleb Plant to become the undisputed super middleweight champion. So we're at that point in Canelo Alvarez's career where if you're a boxing guy and a boxing analyst like me, you're starting to see Canelo Alvarez slow down. He's still a dangerous fighter, but he's not the same guy. When you fight over 60 pro fights, it's like a car that has a lot of mileage on it. It doesn't run the same, doesn't perform the same. That's what we're getting out of Canelo Alvarez when he cherry picks these opponents that he knows that are prospects and that he can look good against for 12 rounds. And then maybe down the line he'll look good in his legacy. But hey, I know the game that Canelo Alvarez is playing is just unfortunate because there's no true threats at the super middleweight division. Canelo is basically in a dead division at this point, with his biggest threat of David Benavidez moving up to 175 because he can never get that Canelo fight. So those are the 2 opponents. Again, Terence Crawford and William Skull. I do believe that could be Canelo Alvarez's future opponents this May for Cinco de Mayo weekend for Canelo Alvarez's return to the sport of boxing.